Okay, so process. You gotta have an anchor. You gotta choose a method of lowering and belaying. You gotta carry it out. Finally, one other obvious thing could go wrong.
The belayer could fall because he hasn't clipped, or she has not clipped into the top.
Or the climber could fall before they happen to be correctly tied in, because remember, you're at the top of an ice climb, and it's probably really slippery. Okay, so just be really aware you're at the top of this climb. Think carefully about where am I anchoring? Am I properly anchored in? Is the other person anchored in? Are we in danger of going on a big slide? And you know, typical top of an ice climb's probably got a nice, you know, ramp over of some sort that's probably slick ice. So the transition from, oh, it's really comfortable to, oops, I'm gone, you know, might be really sudden. Okay? So, this looks like a good anchor right here then.
Okay, sure.
Just girth it, that's hot.
That's all. So if you're at Juray, as I recall, the places where this is an issue, do they have the chains or are they mostly trees?
They're putting more and more bolted anchors in it right now because of the trees dying, because of the beetles and other.
I thought the area at the top of the Pick of the Vic was still mostly trees.
There are still trees, but as I say, they're putting more and more bolted anchors in there now.
Okay. So the nice thing about your array, of course, is that you got, you know, all this endless, you know, stuff like chains and bolts and, you know, things to make life super easy for you because that's the way we are.
Bollards.
Yeah. Doesn't this make you happy?
Like, where is that? The Tucson?
Like a bollard.
Use a bollard anytime you snow around. Built one, but I never used it.
Good to have a 2 weeks ago.
You never had the pleasure of a bollard anchor?
No.
Oh, just like a big metal pole?
No, chopping a big donut.
Into the snow.
Oh, Bear Girl style.
But you don't top rope off that, do you?
Yeah, he was doing that all the time.
Oh, that guy. And then going
Never mind, I want to do that.
What do you mean the folder is empty? Oh, there's so much stuff. Do you have enough on it?
All right, again, for something like this, you're going to particularly want a relatively high anchor. Anytime you're doing a top managed site, it's really convenient to have the anchor relatively high. Trying to do a top managed anchor on the ground is really pretty sucky. There's 2 reasons. One, it's really inconvenient because it's on the ground. And 2, particularly if using a mechanically assisted belay device, it's easy, if you play around with it, to catch part of the gree-gree on the ground and then cause it to not lock.
Mm-hmm.
So having a gree-gree bumping against the ground while you're trying to belay is bad juju. So try to keep it higher up in some fashion. You know, whether that's attached to the tree, or there's an offset, or you have to put an elevator on, or whatever. Just saying it's better to have something higher up. Also, for any top managed site, it's very convenient to have both the master point and a good-sized shelf, because chances are you're going to be clipping several things in, and you're going to prefer they not all be in the same spot. They have some offset relative to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So let's assume. Okay, once I'm tied in, I'm going to want to think about where I want to actually stand. A good rule of thumb in a top managed site is you want to tie yourself in so that you can see what's going on. So if possible, it goes high and you move out toward the edge so you can look down and have some idea what's going on. And there may be a conflict, because if that makes you really far away from the anchor, that may be a problem. It may make it a lot harder to switch back and forth between modes and do something else with it. You have to make a compromise that's not, you know, optimal in either respect. But think, if you can, about sort of how to manage that back and forth, because it's nice in a top managed site to be able to see what you're doing. Okay? So here's the crash test dummy. Go ahead, tighten.
What kind of knot did you use on your?
You plugged into the anchor.
Where?
Just wanted to make sure.
The top one, yeah, flow pitch.
Granny knot.
I can actually do
The
it.
best guy.
It's a, I was just making sure it wasn't clove pitch.
And not a bowling?
Before you go any further on that, just a safety stamp question. Because you're dealing with snow and ice and whatnot, and you use the hinger as opposed to a tree, it's usually safer to put your sling on the tree, on the back side of the tree. So you're not below the tree. So you can put your anchor in, you can attach yourself to the anchor, and then you rotate your sling around the tree to the downside of the tree, as opposed to walking unanchored below the tree, build your anchor while you're unattached to anything. Just because you're on ice as opposed to, rock around and whatnot.
We didn't really talk about that here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sort of assuming that where I'm standing is a safe location as is, which may not be true. Okay, if the tree is close to the edge, good point. Tie in and then rotate the whole
It's a good
sucker
point
around.
even on a rock, but,
Yep.
If it's possible.
If you have more shelf space, it might be easier to do it on the front side and not lay it around. I mean, those are choices you're gonna have to make when you actually get the final spot. Okay? So, there are three usual ways in which you do lowering and converting to a belay. Munter hitch, gree-gree, and auto block belay ones. Okay. I would say in order of simplicity, it's gree-gree, Munter hitch, and auto block belay, right? What are you gonna say?
I was talking to myself, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I do that all the time.
The pluses and minuses. I know, Marty, you love the Munter hitch, so why would you do Munter? Why would you do this with a Munter hitch?
Because you don't have a guide device, you don't
Okay.
have a gree-gree.
It's a good
That's
reason.
one way to do it.
Okay.
And it's very simple.
It's very simple. A big plus of using the Munter hitch for this is that there's no conversion between lowering mode and belaying mode. You tie a Munter hitch, you lower them, and then you bring them up. You don't have to do anything.
And we're talking about ice climbing.
Yes.
The rope gets frozen.
Mhm.
It's very hard sometimes to get it in through your belay device.
Yep.
It's very easy with the munter.
Very easy with a Munter hitch. Okay. So those are all good points. All right. So why not do a Munter hitch?
It's gonna twist your rope.
It's one reason. They're twisty. Okay. Good reason. What else?
If your rope is frozen, that's going to be a,
Yeah, no, it'll still work. That doesn't bother me as much. To me, there's two issues. The reasons why I'd be on a little, why the two downsides matter. Number one is when you're lowering, a Munter hitch is not an auto block, so you need some
You
other
need to
kind
set
of backup.
mm,
So you should have an auto block knot while you're doing the lowering. So even though you don't have to change the configuration or anything, you have to take the auto block off, knot off and on. Right? Reason number two is, what if you can't get up?
There's no hauling option?
It's a lot more complicated.
Okay, right,
It's-
yeah.
The transition from belaying on the muncher to hauling is not very convenient. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I'm saying there's more steps involved. It's more involved. You know, it's more difficult. Okay. Advantage of a gree-gree is that if you got to switch to the raising, you hardly have to do squat. It's already put together. Okay. I mean, you don't have to change configurations at all. Using auto block device, you can also change to raising quickly, but there's more steps involved in going from lowering to raising, and you can screw those steps up. All right, so I mean, these are just, to me, these are some of the considerations that are involved. You know, people who are really comfy with the Munter hitch and really comfy with auto block and you're really confident that the guy will come up, that's probably the easiest way to do it. The other downside I would say with a gree-gree is that a gree-gree, I haven't used it much on frozen ropes, but I'd be a little more worried about how well a gree-gree works when the rope is really wet and really frozen.
I
Especially if
have
it's
not
safe.
seen or noticed gree-grees in New Ray.
Yeah, that's probably a reason.
Yeah.
Any of you?
Yeah, we used it last year.
yeah,
You guys brought it?
I'm bringing mine.
I'm bringing mine.
Okay,
The green
then
one too.
that means I don't have to bring mine.
Yeah. Guess your bag's a little lighter.
Bring a rope though. You're bringing a rope, right?
I'm
Jesus.
bringing my scoots, I can't.
God almighty.
All right. So the simple way to do the lower is you just put this together as if you're going to belay, and then you lower off this, right? And the one thing you have to remember about lowering on a gree-gree is it needs to come back like that.
Mhm.
Right? That is, it should be pulled back so that it's pulled across the friction position of it.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what if you don't have a
Second
beater?
beater.
Redirect.
Redirect it to you don't care. That's fine. That's what the shelf is up there for.
Gotta let the spring in. No, they're not.
I mean the auto locking
ATC.
guide,
Okay?
Mhm.
Am I doing something wrong, Mark?
No, who's being lowered, you or
Yeah.
Matt?
Matt.
So why is his rope on a redirect?
He's
Because I was after it while we were
Yeah.
setting up.
Okay.
right.
He's being
Okay.
safe at the top of the
I
climb.
can't see from here. Okay, I'm good, never mind.
Okay. So you're on belay or on lower. So go ahead and flip.
I wonder if there's a zoom on this. Besides wall clips.
You're lower now.
Oh, see, it's lost already.
Okay, go ahead. The chances are we're going to have to do a little work with the lever in order to let it down.
I don't like it.
All right, I'm at the bottom. All right, it's somewhere before he goes in the drink. Okay, now plus is here that this is relatively easy to now switch because, go ahead and keep your weight on it so we can see. Okay, it's relatively easy to switch because even with his weight on it, all right, climb, bobby. And back up he comes.
Mhm.
Okay? All right, now, if we're using a gree-gree, if you're using a Munzer, what would be different? Well, not much. To be sure we had a nice fat carabiner here. Okay, we have them on a Munzer hitch. Now some people would just lower them on a Munzer hitch. This would not be recommended. And oh no, okay,
Your
not
backup.
auto locked. Okay, so okay, do it out of block.
Mhm.
All right, go ahead and go down. Lowering away.
Okay, I'm at the bottom. The shorter one.
So really
Yeah,
short
short one.
Really short climb. A little top managed bouldering. All right.
Climb.
Climb on.
I don't like that.
I think a Munzer hitch is, not super smooth, but it works.
Mhm.
So you took the auto block off to
I
raise.
took the auto block off.
Just
Could you
trying
leave
to
it on?
keep
Yeah.
from plummeting
It'd
to
be,
step.
it'd be a lot of extra, be a fair amount of extra management, if you kept it on the whole time like this way. Presumably you know what you're doing. If you're not knowledgeable enough to do belaying off a Munzer without an auto block, probably shouldn't be belaying off a Munzer.
But if you slipped,
That's true of any device, right?
well,
Yeah.
if it's auto blocked,
Sure, it's there. I'm just saying, if you got it there, you got a lot more to manage. Because I'm pulling through both at the same time. As far as I know, that's not standard practice to leave the auto block on while belaying. I'm sure some people would do it. I haven't seen that as anything standard practice. Okay. I won't go through if you're experienced with, for example, guide mode belay device, it's the same process. The difference is that there you have to actually attach it and detach it in order to switch from lowering mode
Ooh.
to belay.
Have you seen the video that they use up there?
Yes. And I was going to say, a good thing to do is, if you want to do that, is watch the AMGA video, right?
Yeah, the San Juan Mountain Guides video.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it shows some very nice tricks to make a smooth transition between lowering and raising. But as a general rule, you still need to get the person's weight off of the system. Okay, that is, it's not a good system. If you're doing it off the green, and you want to switch while they're hanging, you can switch while they're hanging. Okay, if you're doing it off an auto blocking, ATC, doing it while they're hanging could be a problem.
That really isn't going to be a problem because, in theory, they're climbing.
I agree, it shouldn't be
Right.
a problem.
But
It shouldn't be a problem, just in case.
Should the stuff hit the fan?
So
Should,
this
this is true, but it's that S word.
If you're using a device in guide mode, ideally it should be where you know that when they get to the bottom, they can get to a stable position at least for 10 or 20 seconds. Whether that's standing on the bottom, or they can sink their tools and take all their weight off, or whatever. You want to make the transition without tension on it. Okay? So, let's take a little time. Feel free to practice. Those of you who know how to do this, work with somebody who maybe doesn't.
All right.
You usually send it around.
Yeah, I'm gonna send that again.
Sorry, that mean to me. Carol, you want
Shimon and Jay,
I
you
haven't
guys
looked
have
at
one
it.
more.
everybody just come on.
It's been on my
It's only because
bucket
we
list.
give it
I
to
never
me.
served, so it's been on my bucket list.
I guess, sorry.
Are you looking at it right now?
Well, I'm gonna try.
So I happen to be.
I haven't seen, I didn't notice you guys.
No, I have not picked it up. Just thought it was email communication.
I'll go work.
We always have, I want to find those areas early on, so you always get to the very end, but you never get
My
to
bucket.
John, by the bridge, John put me there the first year. I found it very provoking. I did it, but it's very committed. So you have to climb it, or you're going to get hauled up.
Correct.
I never go over it.
Not under good eye.
Well, and we had this discussion at the tree last year. You were trying to rig it up and we had a discussion.
Oh, that was years ago, that was 3 years ago.
Whatever.
Yeah, okay.
It depends on what delay device you have. Okay. Obviously, if you have a greaser, it is the simplest. If you don't have a greaser, guide mode gives you some backup that the monkey does not. But there are a lot of people who only carry two devices, and in which case you can't use guide mode.
Right.
Right, so you should be familiar with all three and use the one that you feel best matches the scenario. But it's not, unless you're going to lower him into free air, he should be easily unweighting the rope because he's got his crampons on. He's climbing back up. So you just take the device and you pick it up and pump it to a higher beater and you're in guide mode.
Hey, Shimon, there's a rope kit over here if you and Jay
That's,
want
that's,
one. You already got one.
that's the easiest way to do
Okay.
it.
I want to climb the, because we always leave those to the end.
Well,
We never get to them.
Yeah, we should, probably, usually what happens is the first day or so we want to get on mellow stuff.
Yeah.
And then by the time we get our legs, our confidence up, our bodies are wrecked. So maybe the first day, definitely the second day. Huh?
You know, it's going to be snow on the first and second day. Maybe that might be a way back.
Yeah, Lee sent me a photo that was showing that. They sent me some video of Uray Park. They were getting some snow.
Oh, good, good, good.
But it's warm this week.
Yeah.
Well, that'll help the ice form. Nice. You know, when I was out in the Catskills, a lot of the ice climbs, But they really hadn't formed because there hadn't been any
That's
serious
not
talks
true,
about it.
you can't do that.
I mean, I used to have to hang it.
I'm finally you.
That's good.
I gotta keep my small weight.
Hunter.
Hunter.
Pronounce it correctly. Hunter Mountain.
It's gonna follow you around your rig because I have no idea how to do it. Somebody help!
It's easier than rock climbing.
It's easier than rock climbing.
Easier than rock climbing. Oh, yeah.
I'll be like,
It's very easy in that regard.
and then I'll be like, come on, you have to do a 3, 2, 1. Hold me up.
Are you recording the session?
Because then everyone else would be like,
Yeah, I got one.
alright.
Mine is.
I said, you're gonna use the green rig?
Oh, you have one of those. What's it, fryer?
It's the Fredo. It's Fredo. That's the Fredo.
It's like, what, 30, 50 bucks, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's 50 bucks.
I don't know, Adam got it for me for Christmas.
If you use a Greek read a lot, then they aren't.
Yeah.
No argument.
No, there's some Chinese small
So we can use them.
Yeah.
Well, see, if you really sharpen that edge like last time, yeah, you could, yeah, you could, ward off and, oh, yeah, then sharpen this one.
Thank you, I'm going there.
Just a few different sections. Most of the time you're belaying the line. There's only a few sections that you're belaying the top. Right? To bridge. Oh, and grad school.
Because of necessity, but there is a philosophy, if you will. If you want to maximize your pay, go up to the top, right? You lower someone, you bring them up, you lower the other guy, bring them up, and then you just hop over to the next anchor, as opposed to, you know, then moving. So, yeah, you, so,
I don't know, I might be tired after one class.
you'll be tired, don't worry.
At the point where you said, make sure you take your pencil, that's my advice. You have to, I don't know.
You're not gonna use your expensive cleaner?
Brendan's like, oh yeah, I got insoles. I'll take those out. Like, I don't know. I really don't think I have any insoles. Let me.
I spent several minutes like trying to feel around. Okay.
I'm like, okay, I guess you don't have insoles. Take your word for it.
These partly are somewhat used.
You should get all of your money
Yeah,
back.
the filter reader.
That is when she's coming out. All right, now, for you,
Now, do you really want to be Christmas?
Double back what you paid.
Triple that.
Yeah. Let's not get crazy.
Lower.
Let's get reasonable. Let's go with what it should be versus what it is.
If for some reason you want to lower, you have to come back and forth.
Okay.
Minor.
In any case, it's
But
fine.
that's
like,
correct.
Just, you know.
I'll fine with it. It's just like you said about taking off the auto block.
Great.
You have to take it off. Just leave it here. You have to put it back on again. Sorry, yeah.
Okay,
Now, that's the easy one.
I
Now do it in guidance. Most people take care of it. No changes, but you'll see more guide mode devices.
I got it, I'm like, oh, I'll be glad to drive or whatever. Chairs switch off, and each chair is wet, so I go out of the drive, and I'm like, it's like a station. I cannot drive, and my you want to start getting over. So I'm sorry, but now it's flat, you probably want to be able to drive a big light, or something, or stop on the way.
Oh yeah, so what happened?
What do you gotta do is email me. No. You're in guide mode. I'm not gonna lower it.
Good, thank you.
Alright, you're thinking of a reverse it. You're lowering and then belaying. Most applications belaying and then you can lower.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Alright, so you're already in guide mode. But if you're gonna lower them, you don't put it in guide mode. You put it in just in an ATC upside down. You have an auto block on that.
That would just make you feel a lot better.
I think about the time is
You're now in the river.
swimming.
Put in
Oh,
with the,
sorry, you're
basically
finished.
fools the device. You put the bend in the rope so that you're.
Actually, it's negative 20 on
If you tried to lower like this, there'd be no bend. There'd be no below.
Put it off the road, find a good place for you to sit.
So by putting these up top, that's you're tricking the device. Okay?
The one way is just relying on how strong your grip is, whereas the other way it actually is
The
mechanical.
only other thing is that,
Nope, I only,
would you want your
I
ATC
got
device
one.
oriented this way or the other way?
Well, you want to flip the other way out.
You didn't really hard.
You
Because,
should
well,
see me on Carabao.
the other
I'm looking
reason
myself.
the high friction side as well, because eventually you can work with
Yeah,
the
it's like a.
And the other thing is when you want to put this, you're just flooded. Alright, because now when you redirect it, if this is reversed, you would just take the over.
You can climb. I hope you're climbing. I hope I'm not just falling your side. Let's try both ways.
Well, alright, so you would lower that way.
Oh, I see what I did wrong. Because that's how I wrote it.
Normally you belay hand. You have to climb it. So it works, but it's not as much for
Well, some were like mostly dry, but like they were like totally dried out. They had one like round like this. They were not really dry. What's that? Yeah, I mean Eric was driving like down.
So they give you call and try to get.
Pretty much. I mean, I know Eric's got a much smaller place, so I was like, I got that basement. It's pretty much empty, so we were that. So yeah, and I'm thinking like
I don't like these hard.
so another one down over here.
You don't grab it. You haven't already. Grab it so that when you hang on, okay. So if you could put these
table. Shoot around, I think this is gonna be one of those weekend. I do a deck too on the side. You haven't said how long you're gonna practice or you're gonna like elbow crawl to the other. So we're doing and we're standing up. Okay.
Now you're into issues. The reason but she has to go over the potential swing, pulley tricks, and that is why breathing has so many other advantages over these guys.
I'll send you guys a video, but Don has that. He does it with one finger, set up just like that. I always end up sending it to everybody.
That's the whole. Yeah. Because it's low. If there's any chance that you're going to be low. Because you can go from delay to lower with no changes. This is when you're doing well, I find the first 10 years of my career with that one, and then I had to buy one when I took the SPI class because it was a requirement.
Oh, really?
But breeders have lots of advantages, especially lowering the rate.
The reason why I don't use this is because when I do the lead climb, I do not see enough ropes fast enough for my climber.
Well,
So I
we're
just,
talking about sports. That's never a problem for track. No track climber faster than you can speed the rope. Okay. But there are ways to the breeder. Pinch the lever. All right. They can deactivate it. And then you can't rope to it.
and then immediately.
Okay.
And I'm sure you
Take,
while you're moving them all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, from back here, I can add 15 ropes quickly by moving into it. And move back. So there's a lot of ways to get around. Neither of these systems are right or wrong. Either appropriate or inappropriate, depending on the scenario and the equipment. You know the nuances and the pros and cons of all of them. But if I knew that I was climbing with someone who had real problem getting up, and immediately, not on a monthly.
It depends on what I'm doing. I mean, if I'm just kind of, if I'm trying to go light.
I'm gonna climb 7 days on
We take a couple days skiing.
Well, last year we skied twice. We took a rest day, so the weather was it depends. There's lots of breweries.
And hot dogs.
Here's another
It's like you're swung around
deal with lowering the guide notes. You lower it with a Olympic,
Uh-huh.
and then you bring them up and down.
Yeah, we're looking on Amazon.
How do you do that?
Where I got them off.
Normally it's the.
Yeah, like I took my one, and then I went online and I put
Okay, so yeah, second and you're like, and the status is like sitting up, like none of the weight goes on the status.
Where is the weight?
Also.
I know the window is different.
I didn't realize you were refreshing.
Fine.
It's hard right now.
Only have to do that 30 or 40 more.
Just to get it out. And then, as you say, you can go from slower to racing with no changes after that. The drawback to it is that there is no automatic locking like the other two devices.
I have to build it.
Well, in order for that to be effective, you have to feather it while you're playing. Okay?
Yeah.
So that in theory, you got hit with the ball down. But the laying on wood with a back
Where?
Okay. But
Yeah,
as I say,
that's where that's all.
if you don't have your gree-gree, you don't have your guide device, because you left it back in the hotel, your day is not ruined. It's not like you have to gather, you have to hike back to the hotel to get your gree-gree, you can got it on the table. Okay? Now you build a harness. Okay?
You
kill an animal. But this will work, and it's safe, you have to understand how to use it. Okay? But, we went to, Buzzard. And Dave G opens up his pack and goes, I left my harness. I'll go back to the car. Oh, Buzzard, that's a 2 hour. That's a 2 hour. So I said, I'll build you a harness. So I built it, and he said, I ain't doing that. So I said, all right, you wear my harness, I'll wear the Nation of harness. But you don't hike back for 2 hours to get a harness. You build it.
Swami belt? You built the
Yeah, it's great for climbing. It sucks for being low. Or repelling. But it works. You won't die. So that will work. So, in a pinch, you can go ahead with your gree or your guide mode. That'll work.
Okay, my turn.
Okay, guys, let's have the regular meeting. Fun's over.
We'll do it during the 5-minute break.
Okay. Good hurry.
Not my way.
Yeah.
Voting meeting.
And I was also going to mention if you
Okay,
want.
whatever.
Oh.
Super famous. Thank you, man.
Will be
You're going to say I told you so?
Cool.
If you want an excuse to do top managed belay someplace local, remember there's a bunch of climbs at Carter Rock where you can't walk to the bottom.
It's also good in the spring when the river's running high.
Yeah. Your only challenge in that case is figuring out how to get an anchor that's at a convenient up high level instead of dragging out on the ground.
Does anyone want a paper ballot, by the way?
It's
We'll
uncontested.
come to that in a moment.
We have paper ballots.
Wait, I'm ready to get some.
Are napkins
You're
paper
running?
ballots?
Why not?
Well, I was nominated and I didn't tonight.
Okay.
Yes. Is blanket?
Okay, let us recall.
I know every year we just barely
Article
scratch
2 of the
it.
bylaws provide the opportunity for group enjoyment of mountaineering and related activities to train interested people in mountaineering techniques, for public service who specialize in mountaineering techniques, and to conduct the conduct of these activities in a safe manner. And hope we got to talk something good about safety here today. Let's see. Let's talk about financial report. Treasurer. What have you to say?
End of the year, we have $18,669.35 balance.
And what do we have at the beginning of the year?
In the beginning of the year, we have 16,896.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't understand how we have
Does that mean we need to spend
$16,000.
money?
Probably. Yeah, okay. Well, all right. We'll come to that sort of thing. Members, secretary.
Sorry, password issues. Can you come back to me?
And I'll come back to that. That was actually, since Webmaster's here also, when we talked about membership, I wanted to know where are we as far as, are we going to overflow our capacities? You know, we always have this problem of are we going to overflow our
I don't
kind of
think
at the
so.
limit, but we'll come back to it. Okay, general points of discussion importance. We just had Alpine Skills Weekend, right?
We did.
Please do tell. And when it came back, the same number of people you went up?
We sure did.
Same number, but different people.
Yeah, same number, but different people.
And same number of appendages?
Yeah, oh yeah, it was way more.
Okay.
We took 10 participants and 5 mentors up.
Okay.
We were scheduled to have 13 participants. 1 dropped out in October. 2 actually dropped out 2 days before they were scheduled to leave with some pretty serious injuries.
What happened?
Some slip discs and can't feel feet kind of injuries.
But not related to
Climbing.
Nah,
Okay.
skiing, I think.
Okay.
See,
was
there
it.
you go.
Yeah, so we went up with 10 participants, 5 mentors. Everyone showed up, hiked in. A couple of people, like the weather was really warm. A couple of people on the hike in went shirtless. In January on Mount Washington.
Leslie. It wasn't me, but
Friday, this really
Next year.
it really kind of stifled me as well because I've never seen weather like this. It rained for about 24 hours. Pretty torrential downpour. We tried to do skills for about 3 hours in it, and just everyone got soaked and drenched. And so actually what we ended up doing was we ended up leaving the mountain a day early. On Saturday, and we retreated to town for some hotels because everyone was soaked, and the Saturday night temperature was going to be -10, so it was about 40 degrees on Friday, forecasted to -10 on Saturday, so everyone was soaked, so we just went to the hotel. Instead of taking the group out for a big dinner on PATC, PATC paid for the hotel, so it was about the same cost. And then on Sunday, beautiful weather, so we summited the thing from the road. So just 4,500 feet of elevation gain from the road. So we asked quite a bit of the group. We got to do some skills along the way.
Okay.
And everything, so it's kind of a truncated.
And how warm was it during the summer?
Yeah, it was 2 degrees with about no wind. So it was actually quite warm. Sunburns were the big
concern.
concern. And actually the rain washed all the snow away off the summit.
So weird.
So
weird.
we were rock scrambling most of the way. So, but I think everyone had a good time.
Okay.
Learned some stuff. So
Learn how to navigate rivers is all the snow from Washington actually washed down in a series of rapidly rising rivers. Try to retreat to town.
Oh yeah, we developed methods for crossing rivers with a sled.
Yeah.
Okay. Resourceful. Okay.
Yeah.
So how many of you here were on it? Okay, excellent.
How many of you can go back?
And a few of us went up earlier in the week to try to make a summit before ASW showed up, and it was the exact opposite. Pure whiteout, 60-mile-an-hour winds, things like that. And then we went back a few days later. It's like a completely different.
Yeah, I saw you posted some video that didn't look like shirt.
Yeah.
Shirts off.
Was that the week the
Yeah.
No, that was just like
But
3 days
I
before
think
the
people
race.
learn, that's how mountain weather changes.
Okay.
everything, so.
Members.
This is worthwhile.
All right, and you know, it's not, I mean, that kind of weird temperature contrast, it's not like that doesn't happen on some, you know, really big mountains too.
Right, exactly.
You know, it's I'm reading some book on the trip I was just taking, the guy was talking about going on the Himalayan peak, and, oh yeah, first they're talking about, I almost lost it because I got so dehydrated because I was sweating so hard,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
while we were going through the ice fall, and then, it turned to -40, and then it was
Yeah,
going away.
Yeah, so it can happen.
Okay, excellent. I don't think there have been any other official club activities since the party other than Alpine Skills Week. All right, excellent. So what we need to do now is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to close up with annual reports and related items, and then we'll have an election. And you can go ahead and depose me. I sent around to the club mailing list my annual report. I'm obligated, according to the bylaws, to do an annual report on the state, condition, etc. of the club. I just wanted to comment about a few things that if you read what I wrote, you already know, and if not, I'll just summarize here. I thought, you know, one of the things that I think about when I think about what is PATC-MS is we're a climbing club. And as we stated in our objective for all these meetings, it is to facilitate climbing on the part of the group members. We're not a trail club, we're not a conservation club, not that I have anything objection to conservation clubs, but we're a climbing club. And so to me, the most important measure is whether or not we actually facilitate people going climbing. So if our members climb a lot, and they climb better, and they climb safely, and they progress in a way that they're happy about, getting toward their goals while contributing, then we're successful, and if we don't, we're not. We had a pretty strong set of trips last year. They included both significant alpine and rock trips, both trips for experienced people to meet their goals, and trips with strong educational purposes. We did, of course, Alpine Skills Weekend. We did a Whitetail Alpine Skills Day. We had several clinics covering basics. We had our usual set of instructional events, including New Follower Weekend and New Leader Day. We went out to Seneca, Gunks, etc. There were many informal or semi-formal things that branched off from those. Speaking for myself, I know I went to some interesting places last year, sort of on the side. We visited Smoke Hole Canyon. We visited Greenland Gap. We went to a number of other off-the-beaten-track areas. People got out to Old Rag. They did a lot of different things. We had, for the second year running, a club expedition. This one was to Red Rocks. Some significant long climbs were accomplished by people, and I think we got a chance for a lot of people to climb together in different combinations. So I think that was pretty good. There were a number of significant individual accomplishments. Some big summits were climbed last year, including Mount Everest by one member. Not a club trip, obviously, but it was done. One of our expedition grand trips summited Denali last year in the course of their grand year-long transcontinental extravaganza, which I think we're all looking forward to seeing some videos of. My general sense is that there has been a significant advancement of climbing skills throughout the club over the last few years. I would say in general there are more people who are rock leaders, and there are more people who are climbing at a relatively upper intermediate advanced level than there have been in years past. That's not a this year phenomenon. That's, I think, something that's been building over a couple of years, and I'm pretty happy with that. We had a significant initiative, the first Wednesday initiative at Carter Rock, of having an official way of introducing people. I thought it was an effective and a good plan. It had much more burden than was intended on a small number of people, mainly Doug Alexander. If we're going to continue it, which I hope we will, we need to spread the load a little more. We're still, 2-3 months away from a serious resumption of Carter Rock, so it's not like that has to be decided immediately, but that, I think, is an important piece of club business to deal with early on. The major issue, I would say a major issue we're going to have come up in 2018 is relationship with the parent club. As many of you know, at the end of 2016, this first showed up, which was a question about enforcing the element of the PATC bylaws that says everybody who is a member of a section also has to be a member of the parent club. That I thought when I took over as chair that was going to be a major issue for 2017. It turned out to be a non-issue for 2017, mostly because they kept turning the president over every couple of months.
How many have there been now?
3 this year?
Let's see. I think we're
I think you're on the third.
One, two,
The
three,
fourth
four.
just
Yeah, it's the
stepped in.
fourth one I've
Oh, the
seen.
fourth
Third,
one.
third
Fourth has
changeover,
just
fourth
stepped in.
person. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
That'll probably, I don't know. I assume it'll settle down or not. That's what I thought last time.
We'll see.
It was not.
Are they willing to cut us a break if we decided to do that? I mean, not a full membership to the parent company.
Well, I'm going to return to that question.
Okay.
I'm just saying that it was a non-issue in 2017. I was hoping it would go away, but it didn't. It came back at the end of 2017.
Right.
So, assuming the president is stable, it'll come up. They have their own schedule.
President is not
which-
stable,
Yeah.
Right.
Very.
nor a genius.
Yeah.
So
You're talking
Which
about
president are you talking
which
about?
club?
their schedule is the schedule on this
Oh,
is
sorry,
in
which
part
club?
dependent on what they're doing with their IT infrastructure. Historically, they've been pretty slow about changing that over. They claim it's going to happen this summer. We'll wait and see. Let's see. I think some of our basic initiatives, First Wednesday, New Follower Day, Club Expeditions, etc., are all very responsive to the issues that we have. I would say that we do have the obvious bottleneck of particularly people moving from, hey, somebody take me climbing, to I'm a self-sufficient climber who can go to the people and be an equal contributor. I think that's always been the bottleneck. I think we do a little better at pushing through the bottleneck than in the past. I don't think there's a magical solution to it, but I'm going to keep thinking about it and keep pushing on it. A couple things I'd like to talk about, or I think we as a club should talk about. Do we want to adopt any particular system of official certification? And the obvious thing that has come up is AAC Universal Belay System.
No.
It's fine. We can have a yes or no. We're not to answer this. I'm just saying that the AAC Universal Belay System is now available. And if we wished, we could become providers of Universal Belay System cards. The reason for that would be so that you'd know when you saw somebody whether or not they had a belay.
Whether they've reached a minimum.
Yes, if you're
amount of
comfortable
skills
just
and
watching
abilities.
them as they go, that's okay. If you like it, it's something we could do. There's a certain amount of overhead that would be involved in it. I do think that, I don't know, I'm not going to necessarily say we have a club standard for setting up top ropes at Carter Rock and Great Falls, but certainly I'd like to see a de facto standard for how people set up top ropes there. In part because it seemed like the most, the greatest amount of angry interactions I've had with people last year had something to do with somebody complaining about what somebody was doing with a top rope setup at Carter Rock. And whether or not that was a perception of unsafeness or because they hit somebody by throwing a rope without yelling rope or whatever. Okay, but if somebody called me up to complain, which does happen, it was probably about something at Carter Rock and probably about something having to do with setting up a top rope at Carter Rock. We do, I think, a pretty good job of New Leader Day. And I've run New Leader Day for a couple of years now. My observation on New Leader Day is it's very popular. It seems to be very useful for people. And there's a clear division between people who are in New Leader Day who really need to go do other practice for some time before they become leaders. And people who show up for New Leader Day who in fact are ready to become leaders and they just need a little bit of mentoring and they're pretty much rare to go. And I think maybe we need to kind of address that because it sure would be useful to transition some people into actually being leaders and to discourage some people from trying to become leaders right away. Right now we just sort of kind of leave it up to them. And that's it for now. I'm going to take up the question of PATC organization later. My one other happy task is Golden Carabiner Awards. And I'm sure what everybody in the club really wants is an additional piece of useless equipment they can keep around. Because that's what we really need more of is random low-quality carabiners that happen to be golden.
They're great for hanging keys.
Yes, there's that. Anyway, we're going with the golden Amazon card.
Yeah.
Because you can definitely, you want to spend it on a carabiner, spend it on a carabiner, right?
That's your preference.
Be my guest. So I had a couple that I wanted to give out. I have 2 for people who have been here serving with the club for a considerable time and are on their way to other things. Bill, who has been vice chair, outline sports weekend organizer, and trekker up and down Mount Washington in a wide variety of conditions, most of which are unsuitable for him to climb or family.
Thank you very much.
The mistress of money.
Oh, thank you.
I don't ignore anybody who's on the EXCOM except that, you know, some of you are staying, so you'll just have to sort of hang around for a little while, probably.
Expect one on my exit.
The always stalwart and essential Marty.
Oh, yeah.
Just want you to know I'm using my golden carabiner from last year as a dehydration meter.
And I'm going to call her our queen of logistics, our queen of logistical work, club expedition, Dax house, etc. Carol.
Oh my! Oh my!
And the other person who's really deserving is not here is Doug, because he's been handling the whole. It was really Jenny's idea to do First Wednesday, and she got it going and then moved to Seattle, leaving the whole thing with Doug. Generously, who has taken it on. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Carol, because you need to run the election.
Right.
Carol.
So, who's voted here? Yay. Thank you. What? Did you really not vote on me?
So,
You know what?
if you're running, you should step out.
Oh, okay.
You don't need it.
Just raise your hand. It's
So-
uncontested.
Paper ballot, but I didn't realize we had to print paper ballots out. However, who wants one? Because honestly, a napkin is fine, folded over, and Sylvan reads them anyway.
We just
So
raise your hand.
Yeah.
I will hand out
Just raise hands.
the
Yeah, we'll
paper
raise hands.
ballots. It's,
I'm pretty comfortable with raising my hand.
It's
Okay.
uncontested.
Yeah, thank you.
all right. So, if, for those of you who haven't voted and who want to vote now, do you vote for the current slate, or would you like to suggest other candidates?
Wait, so
For instance, for vice president.
So we.
Mark is the
No.
president?
We want you for
You're
vice
vice
president.
Nope,
president?
I'm out.
She's gonna be vice president?
Oh,
no.
I liked your tone of voice. So,
Samantha's changing her vote.
I nominate.
She'd like to do it anonymously now.
Show of hands, who wants Samantha's vice president?
Yes. I mean, have you seen me on Grandma? Just get some videos.
Okay, so if you want the current slate, please raise your hands. If you have not voted, if you voted, keep your hands down. You can only vote once. It's not Chicago, people. Okay,
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
so we have five.
6.
No, she actually voted. She voted no.
She did.
Have you seen how it's gonna drag on?
Okay. So
Done?
And you have, I assume.
we have the online counts, and
Right.
we have one by email.
There were 37.
There were
I didn't-
40.
Oh, then we made it to 40
We
because
made
this
40,
afternoon it was
one by email.
37.
So
Yay.
that's-
Maya.
10% of membership?
Woohoo!
Okay, so we have 46 votes for basically the 4 nominated people. which
It's
are
Russia.
Mark, Carol, Corey, Siobhan.
Right.
So
So the slate passes. There's no required number of people that votes. Should there be a required number of people that vote?
No, it's not
Quorum.
gonna be-
So
Should it be like Italy where people pay a fine if they don't vote? Okay, so the slate passes, and say goodbye to Bill and Jade, and hello to me and Lori. See ya. So that's it. The election has been held.
great pass.
That's it, Mike.
No vote recounts?
If they want to.
All right, so we'll need to do, we'll just need to make adjustments to the EXCOM mailing, against the EXCOM mail add to this.
I'm sure eventually you guys get around to
Eventually
it.
we get around to it. And also, we actually do need to
Wait,
change
is that
the
in
accounts
constant
this time.
comments?
Huh?
I'm available. We gotta get
It's
Andy's
not on
name
Love
on it.
After Pop, but yeah, I can
So,
send it.
Oh,
yeah, you and I, we need to talk about how to actually, I guess we're gonna have to, where's the bank?
Where's the money? It's over here, not too far. It's PATC.
Show me the
house.
There's a box
Because
in our
we
jar.
card, we have a card, and has a card. Because Andy still has a card, I think we need to get new cards.
Yeah,
right?
I-
With
we-
your name on it
Right.
and his name
Yeah,
on
we,
it.
Do you
well, we'll talk about this, let's talk this right after.
do you want to keep using PNC or
Out
should
with
we
the
just
old.
switch
That didn't
all
take
to
long.
PayPal?
We might want to switch. But anyway,
You're out.
we'll talk about this later. I just gonna say, we do need to actually switch some, we need to reconcile the key issue too.
The key issue right
Did I take the
That
key?
you've got.
I gave Carol.
I don't have a key. Did I take the
Key.
Okay, it's
What key?
Is that the pile of keys?
All right, let's talk about upcoming events.
Market.
Dax House.
Woo, Dax
Just
House.
give out
Okay,
keys.
so there is is anyone going to Dax House that's here? Anybody guys planning?
I'm not staying there, but
When
I'm
is it?
probably maybe going.
You should go
Uh,
and stay. It's a really pretty house.
You've been there?
I rented it.
Yeah.
You've been to the house?
The house, you've not done the photo tour of it, it's gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's in Elizabethtown.
It's, yeah, which is
Let's go
close to
fair
Chapel
down.
Farm.
Beautiful.
I'm flying down to Joshua Tree.
So anyway, where are we at? We have a couple spaces left.
So there are
There's
four
four
spaces
spaces
left.
Okay.
What, wait, what? There are four spaces
Yes, I
left.
said exactly that.
Yeah.
What
Did you hold up this many fingers though?
Yes, I did.
And-
They were facing that way.
And what currently are what's the snow conditions, ice conditions there lately?
They're very good right now, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, the ice was good here last week and
Yeah.
then it was 60 degrees.
Yeah.
So, and now it's waterfalls, but now it's freezing again. So that's actually good for building ice, as far as I know. So there are four slots left in the house. There are actually will be 5 real slots if somebody wants to take mine because I got a job today and I can't go. It's the life of being freelance. So take the jobs where they come. So if anyone does want to go, we have equipment.
Mhm.
It's a wonderful. You need to know someone that can lead or at least can top rope. But or you can hire a guide. That's what the woman that I was going with I would want to do. Just hire a
So
guide.
for those who've been there, I so recall there's a reasonable selection of places that you can top rope with,
Zillion. There are
without leading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a few.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Few, but
there's
it's court,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's some, and when we were there last year, it was warm. I mean, I was in shirt sleeves when we set the top rope. Remember how warm that was?
Okay.
So
Chillapilla.
yeah, Chiller Pillar, that was pretty amazing. So, and there's also wonderful if you can lead ice and know someone that can. Amazing. So that's the Dax House coming up the 15th to the 19th.
Okay, great opportunity. All right.
$136 for the 4 nights.
Okay.
Beautiful house.
Next thing I want to put on everybody's list to note is that we should do Whitetail Alpine Skills Day. As usual, we don't have a date for it because we don't get a date till the last minute. I guess I need to be sure I know who the guy to talk to there is.
Mike Schumann.
Yeah, I'll have to call my email and make sure I know how to contact him. I take it they're open by now, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They have good snow this year?
Yeah, I've been skiing there a couple times. Yeah, it's
All right.
great.
Yeah, they had a good mix of ice, snow, ice, snow.
Okay.
Really good.
So likely as not, it'll be early in March.
Maybe later in March, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Unpredictable.
More ideas. So it's time to fill the calendar. So the new EXCOM needs to meet. We need to start filling the calendar. So feel free to throw some ideas out. Whatever else you'd like, the guys like to set up.
Are we having a big club trip this year?
If somebody wants to start organizing it, we should organize it shortly, and we should talk about where to go.
Well,
I personally think this might be a good year to do something alpine-y, like to the northwest.
that would be Bill's. heart's desire.
I'll give you a guidebook, Carol. Yeah, we can talk about some things because I've been thinking about that as well. It's time to go out there.
Okay, so I think I'd like to start planning that. You know, this is a couple months from now is adequate lead time, particularly for places where you don't have to really permit way in advance. If we're gonna go to Sierra, we got to permit way in advance.
Yeah,
Most
walk-in
places up there.
permits.
I mean, a lot of the permits are first come, first served.
Yeah.
You gotta do them the day of.
What's the situation on Mount Baker? Do you need permits there?
You need a permit to park, I think, but not to be on the mountain. So,
Okay.
But yeah, you can get that easily. It's not regulated because it's right outside
Right.
the national park. So.
Okay. But anyway, it was pointed out that it's been a few years since we've done an alpine-oriented club expedition. There was a Rainier trip a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It seems like it's about time to give it a go again.
Sure. Yeah.
A Rainier trip?
That's a possibility too. It's just that's kind of a single objective sort of thing, unless you want to drive around and have enough cars that you can hit the other volcanoes.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, I mean, there's definitely areas, like the Washington Pass area has got alpine rock where, there's campsites all in the area, but within a 5-minute drive, you can be to trailhead to a dozen different objectives, so, and it's right outside the park, so the permitting, you don't need one to camp or climb, so, and that would probably accommodate many different skill levels, but it's not. There's no glaciers. There's no So if you're looking for like something with a glacier objective, then you're looking at just you need a permit to probably be on that peak or something that's in the park. So but depending on the number of people, I mean, there's a lot of things to kind of factor in as far as if you do big mountains or just alpine rock or do it all. So.
Okay, access update. I haven't heard anything from Edwin. I don't know of any near-term plans for trail building, and I don't know about anything having to do with Carter Rock repairs, unless. Okay, publications. I don't have anything. Gearmeister, how we doing? We're feeding our face.
I think pretty much everything is accounted for in my record, but not everything has come back to top line skills yet, so I still need to make the assessment. But I haven't heard anything back, so I'm sure everything will come back. We acquired another Quick 10 successfully, just like the previous one. Did not get used in Mount Washington, it turned out, just because the number of people who had kept going didn't justify breaking 2 tents.
Okay.
We also acquired a pair of Coflax, which were used on that one.
Okay.
Nice.
Twice. But not this year.
All right. I don't know if anybody is specifically working women's events. Anybody know anything?
I don't, but I can talk to the people who usually organize.
Okay, any other business from the floor? All right, let me talk about the PATC relationship issue. And let me give you a quick background and explain some of what we talked through at EXCOM and I'm going to talk through at the next EXCOM meeting. The PATC bylaws specify that everybody who is a member of a section must also be a member of PATC. This has historically been ignored. And it's not been ignored just with respect to us, it's been ignored with respect to the ski touring section and with some of the regional sections, where some of the regional sections have likewise had memberships that are basically disconnected from the membership of the parent club. The primary reason why this has come back is that the size, the annual budget and size of assets of the PATC have passed a threshold resulting in a different level of IRS and audit scrutiny, which has gotten everybody kind of bent out of shape. And as a result, they've tried to do a lot of stuff, and Jade knows they ask for a lot more financial information than they ever used to. And this is probably at least partially an indicator of why presidents haven't been lasting very long. If you look at the budget and assets of the parent club it's in the range of where other similar nonprofit organizations have actual professional staff, executive directors. You know, they've kind of at the, which they don't. You know, if you look at others, they would typically be more in the range of there's an actual professional executive director, some paid staff, and then there's the volunteers form a board of directors as opposed to actually having executive function. And indeed, there's been discussion about whether or not they would transition to that model. So their bylaws are pretty clear on the question, and they've been pretty clear in talking to me that they have an expectation that that's what we're going to do. Now, I point out a couple things about this. Aside from this question about, you know, hey, what about a deal? The other issue is that there's basically no real discussion about what it means anywhere, what it means to be a member. And what do you do if you're a member versus if you're a non-member? Okay. And for example, they run events like their hikes all the time. Do you have to be a PATC member to go on to one of their vigorous hikes? No, you just show up. You show up, you sign the sign-in sheet, you sign the release, and you go on the hike. So there's a wide variety of, you know, that is the concept of there being guests and members is already existent throughout the whole organization. The ski touring section has used a different mechanism for some time, and I've explained the ski touring mechanism to you guys, some of you already. I'll just briefly explain. You can join a ski touring section without being a member of PATC. You can go on basically a local day trip with the ski touring section without being a member of anything, of the section or the parent club. If you want to go on one of their larger trips, which they refer to as excursions, then either you cannot go unless you're a full member, or it's economically non-viable for you to go unless you're a non-member. Okay, the way they charge a differential cost, they might as well have joined up. Okay. Now, remember for the ski touring section excursions are not like, you know, going camping at Seneca Rocks. I mean, they involve going for a couple days and having a hotel room and having meals and, you know, all that other stuff. So their mechanism basically is that if you're an actual active member, that is a person who goes on a significant number of actual club trips, you'll sign up to be a member of both. One of the reasons they do it this way is that really, if you're going to be covered by the insurance, you need to be a member of PATC. And PATC is extending the insurance umbrella to all of the sections, and that does include us. Okay, I spent a lot of effort at the beginning of last year figuring out whether or not the insurance umbrella actually connected to us. And I do have in writing that the insurance umbrella does extend to us and to all of the activities that we do, which honestly shocked me to no end.
It did, yeah.
I was fairly certain that when I actually explained to the insurance agent all the stuff that we did, they were like, no way. I wrote, you know, 5 or 6 pages, and I said, oh yeah, by the way, we do this, and ice climbing, and multi-pitch trad, and you know, this, and these all kinds of places with, you know, none of this certs and no professionals. I laid it all out there. I said, okay. And the only thing they said was, well, you can't do any events that have more than 500 people.
Not a problem.
Yeah, well, that didn't really seem like a...
Well, that's really put the kibosh on my plans for vice president.
Yeah. And we couldn't run competitions. So I guess we can't have races to the top of Seneca. So, but, you know, otherwise it was really open.
So has something really changed? 10 years ago, they informed us that we were not covered in.
I know.
Okay. So all of a sudden.
Yes, and when I brought that up with them, they all were all looking at me like, what are you talking about? Somebody told you that you weren't covered? When? Who was it? Nobody had a record of it.
That was Wiley and.
Yeah, I know. And that's why the first process that took several months was to try to reconcile this whole issue, because when we asked them exactly that question, I got a bunch of dumb looks like, oh, we don't know what you're talking about. And then I started saying, what does your insurance actually cover or not? And then they started thinking, what does our insurance actually cover? Because it's pretty clear they had never read the policy either.
Wow.
Okay, so let me make a point. There's bads and goods. So one way or another, we're going to have to decide what to do. And one thing we decided what to do is to leave from another club. Just not a completely crazy thing to do. I'm not terribly excited about the prospect, but it's obviously something to be done. If we stay, then I assume that we are going to have a situation where a lot of people are going to participate as guests rather than members. I have no idea what that ratio is going to be. So, but I assume it will be larger than it is today, okay, whatever it is. We'll have to have a guest policy. We'll have to decide what that is. Well, is Carter Rock open to guests and Seneca not? Is Carter Rock and Seneca open to guests, but the DACs are not? You know, when
Well, we
DAC's
plan
house or
club
something?
trips. Do we pay for people that aren't members, or?
All good. Those are that's what's going to have to be taken up. Okay. Now I want to point out that well, these are all bad because it's bureaucracy and it's dealing with issues we've never dealt with, and it's probably less money, and it's probably dealing with people who free ride. There are some goods. There are things that we were told, because going back to the insurance question, when we decided we had no insurance, we got a legal opinion got a pro bono legal opinion from this company downtown.
With Giacomo.
Yes.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
facilitated the process, and I've read that opinion pretty carefully. And one of the things it does is a lot of our current practices are based on what's in that legal document, because it says that there are things that you should not do in order to insulate yourself from liability and take advantage of the basically the volunteer organization laws that exist in those states. And one of those things is you shouldn't pay anything. Okay, so you notice we don't pay Carol for organizing the DAX house. We don't offer people a free stay when they've organized the club expedition. Okay, we don't reimburse expenses. We don't reimburse. We reimburse some training activities, but we never collect money for teaching things. We don't pay our instructors. You know, we'll reimburse the cost of, say, an SBI test. Okay, STS does ski touring section does all those things because they're under the insurance umbrella. Their excursions are organized by a leader, and the leader has expenses paid. Okay, so they do that kind of thing. We could do that too. Do we like that? Is that a useful thing? Would we get more and better trips if the trip organizer got reimbursed for expenses for the trip?
An incentive to be an organizer.
It would be, sure. Okay. I can tell you that they organize a lot more. The ski touring section organizes a lot more elaborate trips than we do. They put a lot more effort into logistics on their trips. They put a lot more complicated trips together, probably in part because whoever organizes it gets their expenses paid. And that might be a considerable incentive for some people. So I'm just saying these are things that need to be weighed in the consideration of how we do this. Also, there are some activities for which our having insurance is a condition for us doing the activity. Okay. Whitetail is the prime example. There could be others, and whitetail didn't used to care, but now they do. I don't think we'd be able to do the whitetail again if we didn't present a certificate of insurance. We don't have a problem presenting a certificate of insurance right now because we can, and we did it last year, although the situation was kind of fuzzy last year. The insurance company agreed to do it. There shouldn't be a problem at all this year.
So if I understand, PATC, the umbrella organization, wants all of the dues that we collect.
No,
They want us to also be members of
yes,
PATC, the
and
umbrella
pay PATC
organization.
dues, yes.
And they are not willing to give us a $15 membership knowing we will never use any of their stuff.
Not currently.
Is there a way that we can even easily keep track of who's a member of PATC?
Not now, but that's part of the promise for later this year. Okay, because what they want to do is they want all membership things to route through their IT infrastructure. And they freely admit that today you can't do that. Okay. That's
and would
just
they
not even
control the
doable.
budget as well?
No.
So the money we collect for our dues would still be in the
Yes,
control of the
but it would be a
treasurer.
pass-through. It'd be a pass-through arrangement. So in other words, because you kind of do this right now. Okay, if you join PATC, when you go onto their website, you can click something that's like, oh, I'm interested in the mountaineering section, because every month I get a dump from their database that says the following people just joined PATC and said they were interested in mountaineering. They didn't sign up for the MS, they just checked the box and said they're interested in mountaineering. So I always send a blast email out to everybody on that list once a month saying, hey, come join us. Come over to our website and join
Come
us.
to the dark side.
Right. The
Stop
mech-
walking without everything's on your back.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
I will
mechanism,
say,
their
I joined
intent.
PATC first by mistake.
Yes, I'm sure. Every once in a while, somebody does that. Yes.
Much like I signed up for Alpine Skills Weekend thinking it was you ice climbers.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Ha ha on you.
It what? Wait, what?
I mean, what's better? If Carol Clayton can make it to the top of Mount
Thank
Washington.
you.
So their intent is that now instead of checking the box actually enrolls you in a section.
Okay.
And it
Yeah,
adds
the
our
associated
charge, and then they collect the money, and then the money flows out to us. And again, they're doing this mostly because they're trying. They have a headache. I don't know whether it's well founded or just a bureaucratic headache of saying that they don't even know sort of how much money is coming in. Because there's no reconciliation. We tell them what our budget is right now, and what our financials are, but they just say thank you and add it on to. I mean, literally, that's it. They just add it on to the end of their
Put it in the book?
spreadsheet. Yeah.
So, sorry, but what is the quote headache? I realize the laws of the bylaws of the parent club say you're supposed to be, but they have an informal practice where a trip leader is a member and other people are guests.
Yep.
We could have a practice.
We could. That's what STS does.
Where people are associate members
Yes.
and they're not members of the. They only pay
Yes.
the $15 to us.
Yep, that's what STS does. It'd have to be finessed a little more carefully than that, okay? But historically, that's what STS does. That there's a subset of people who are full members. I'm just saying, I think that in the case of STS, it's easier to explain because in the case of STS, it's as a de facto case, all the people who not just are trip leaders, but who are active members of STS are members of PATC. Because you have to do that when you go on one of their more substantial trips. And if you're an active member of STS, you want to go on one of their more substantial trips. Okay, I'm not convinced that would be the case for us.
What's the cost to join PATC?
What is it? 45 a year, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
45.
Right.
And have we raised our
Ours is 30 right now.
dues
I think.
as well?
Yeah.
Which there's no point. We have more money than we started the year. So we're still, for whatever reason, people are still buying the guidebooks occasionally. So we're still getting royalties once in a while.
Yeah, that one's.
So anyway, I don't want to resolve this tonight. We'll take it up at the EXCOM meeting. Just other things that are going on. PATC wants to have somebody come to one of our meetings and tell us about the glories of PATC and how everybody should want to be a member.
Only if they sing it.
Okay. And I'm fine with that.
Fine.
I'm perfectly willing. We'll see what they say. And we need to talk about what would go into a draft policy, and obviously there would be some bylaw changes because our bylaws do not really specify. Basically, they specify that I have to be a member of PATC, and that's it.
He's the only one.
They might say the rest of the EXCOM does too. But I think it's on the
No, it
The
just
practice-
says.
just says me.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I've checked.
But the practice was all, de facto, all the Exxon was.
That historically
Exxon
that's
was,
the case.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions? I don't want to drag this
How's
out.
the
for long.
insurance if you're, yes, you're not insured, or how does that go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems like
Yeah,
it leaves us way open.
That's
Many horrible
Because
things.
if it covers all activities that we do, is that only for members or,
Is that only for those who are fully?
like first
Well,
Wednesdays, we have a
so
lot of
remember what it's really doing is remember the insurance is not protecting the individual, the insurance is protecting the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And I
But
can't
no
give,
matter if it's caused by a
I know,
guest or
right, and I can't give you a firm answer. Okay. I just can't give you a firm answer because I don't know exactly, and I'm not a lawyer. So I haven't tried to interpret what all the insurance clauses mean. And honestly, I read the whole thing, but I was making my eyes fog over, trying to figure out what the heck this actually meant. But it's, because they've certainly the insurance policy is drawn up so that, for example, it covers people. People can use PATC cabins who are not PATC members. Right. Some PATC cabins are for members only, and some are open to the public if you pay. And certainly the policy covers PATC for liability associated with use of the cabin, whether it's a member or not. So there's appropriate clauses in it. And again, I think the ski touring section sort of deals with that, where they sort of said, well, if you're going out with us for 5 days or 2 weeks to Colorado, you're a member or you're not going. Okay, but if it's skiing for a day somewhere over at Manassas Battlefield, we're not going with it.
I've been a member for 20 years. We've had a couple members die in the club or injuries. Well, no, but I mean members, mountaineering section members that have gotten killed.
Oh,
Yeah.
you mean our club?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm talking about AAA. No, but
I thought you meant.
okay, I'm just kidding. But we've never been sued.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so I mean.
Sierra Club was.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
When they pulled the insurance on us, or we thought they pulled the insurance, Graver had a great expression.
Graver, that was what, 25?
Yeah, and he said, hey, we're climbers. We're supposed to take risks.
Yeah.
That's what the game's about, something like that. That's
No, I
it.
agree. There have been accidents, and there's never been a problem here. But I can tell you for a fact, because I know that Sierra Club got sued over climbing accidents that occurred on Sierra Club trips, and there were real issues, and that's why the rock climbers all got kicked out. So they did.
That was your dad's
No, that was it.
connection.
There was my father's connection. He was floor connected as peak baggers, and they didn't get kicked out, but they had a bunch of their peaks removed from their list of peaks they were permitted to run trips.
Officially.
Yes.
Wow.
They had several emblem peaks were now unofficial peaks. Questions, thoughts? Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and we'll adjourn. And
Are the EXCOM meetings open to?
of course.
Okay.
And whose house are they held at, or you come here?
We've been holding them at Sport Rock, Alexandria.
Yeah, we usually go climb somewhere.
Because you guys were all Sport Rock members.
I'm not.
Yeah, but they had guest passes.
Sounds like EXCOM.
You can
Yeah, so
you
now
can
you-
just pass that, or you come up. I mean, after all, you just want to.
Well, you don't have to climb, you can
stairs.
just go to the meeting.
Yeah.
And then stare Bakefieldian as they climb.
I'll
Yeah.
give you a guest pass, Carol.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me know. I'll get you.
Okay. If that's it, let's adjourn. And can I see the old and new XCOM for a couple minutes, please?
All right. Very good. Good work, guys.
So,
Good job, Jay.
is it okay to Elizabethtown and fly?